Okay, we're sitting here today with Mark Huber. Mark himself dates to 1961. His family dates to 1938. Mark knows history here. He's been involved with the History Association. He's played in the bathtub, played in the tan vat, early on in the community hall. So Mark, just tell us some of your early memories and some of the stories you know about Cattail.
Well, as you mentioned, my first summer here was in '61, and of course the community was pretty well populated by then, because they started selling lots here in 36, 37, and so I got here in '61, and I was only a year old, so I didn't really stray very far, but my mother did take me to the creek. So my very first memories are of playing in the creek, and then of course going down to come over here to the community hall for the cover dish dinners and the bingo games and the board meetings and the regular meetings.
Cakewalks or the cakewalks?
The cakewalks.
Cakewalks. Wow.
The cakewalks were so much fun. That was the women. All the women would bake their favorite cake, and they were all so proud of their cakes, and you know they took so much pride in what they did. And the cakewalks were to raise money for the association. Back then, they were involved more in the community, working on roads and stuff like that. But today, that's all up to the members to do themselves. So we did a lot of that, and then about 1968, Ray Miller built the Mountain Wilderness Campground, and they started having square dances there. So we started going to the square dances because they had square dances at the community hall back in the 50s, before I was born.
With live music, right?
With live music, and the local folks used to come around. We had people coming from all over to go to those dances. So that was, those square dances were a lot of fun at Mountain Wilderness, and we just did everything. The kids, we hung out in gangs. There were gangs of us, you know, and
roaming gangs, roll up and down the mountain.
Rolling up and down the mountains, you know, kids the same age. Like there may be a gang of kids that are like 10, 12 years old, another gang of kids that were in high school, but we all got along, and we all would get together and do things. And
did we all have BB guns?
We all had BB guns. I still have my BB gun.
No,
my dad bought it for me at Western Auto in Burnsville. I believe it was in the mid '60s, and I think it was about $6.98.
Right.
And I still own that BB
right.
gun.
And how about firecrackers? Did we always have?
Oh
cherry
yeah,
bombs,
yeah. We'd stop in South Carolina and pick them up because they didn't sell them in North Carolina, so we would stop in South Carolina. And 4th of July, boy, it was just let loose with all those fireworks. We really enjoyed that.
So there's an ancient story here that, you know, it's kind of almost like a legend, and I've always wondered if it's really true. Tell us about your uncle in Blue Sea Falls, please.
Well, back then, if they knew you, you could go into the boundary. It didn't get locked down. Once the family that owns it now bought it, they are the ones that privatized it and locked people out. But you could go in there, and you could. Most people went in there to go on a Jeep trip to Mount Mitchell. That was the big thing, because there was an old toll road there that the Wilsons had put in, the Wilson Toll Road. So Jeep trips were very common. I have pictures of Jeep trips, and I have a box of pictures. It must be 1,000 of them, and I still haven't seen them all. And a lot of them are pictures of Jeep trips, and they would just all get together, and everybody back then. The only thing that was 4-wheel drive was the Willys.
Right.
The Willys Jeeps.
The wood sides with the.
Those were the only ones that were 4-wheel drive, and. So we had one, and Harry Wallace had one, and Elmer Day had a Jeep, had a Jeep truck,
right?
And so the Jeep trips to Blue Sea Falls.
And the Downings had a Land Rover. He had that out there.
Yeah, the Downings had a Land Rover. So that was a very popular thing, was getting together, and most often it would involve packing a lunch.
Right.
So, you know, after
swim, big pool at the bottom of Blue Sea Falls, right?
Big deep pool, deep way over your head, good 10, 12 feet deep. And the trout in there were just as big as you could imagine. Just huge.
Well, tell us about Sonny then. Is this story true?
Oh yeah, he did go over the falls.
No.
That was, in fact, I found the newspaper article on the online, the old Burnsville newspapers. That was about '63, and he had his girlfriend. Her name was Mary Faith, I believe, and they, like I said back then, they would allow you to go into the boundary if they knew who you were and they knew that you weren't going to fish.
Mm-hmm.
So he went in there with his girlfriend. She wanted to see Blue Sea Falls. And then she decided she wanted to go up to the top of the falls and take pictures looking down. And there's a little trail that goes from the bottom of the falls through the woods up to the top. It's been there forever. And so they went up the trail to the top of the falls, and she was taking pictures leaning over, and she leaned over too far and went over the side, and she reached out for him, and he grabbed her, and she ended up pulling him over with her. But they were very lucky because there were places down at the base of those falls where if you hit rock. But they were very lucky. They fell in open water, deep open water, and they were fine, and nothing ever happened to them.
So tell us this then. So with your experience with the History Society, you know a lot about the railroads here. And that's kind of really fundamental, isn't it, the railroad?
The railroad, yeah, the railroad made Pensacola. Pensacola was more populated during the railroad days than it is today. The railroad came, the very first train arrived, it was April of 1917. And at first it didn't carry any passengers because they were behind on what they were supposed to do. They were late getting the tracks out here to Pensacola. They didn't arrive when they were supposed to. So they went right into bringing lumber into the mill, but they also carried passengers, and that was a lifeline between Burnsville and Pensacola. Was that train, and it was very important. But the problem was once the logging was over with and they pulled out, there wasn't enough revenue from passengers to support the railroad. That was the problem. The revenue was coming from the timber, hauling the timber to Kona.
And aren't most of these roads up here old railroad grade?
Most of them are old railroad grades, not all of them. My road is not an old railroad grade, but
That's Cold Springs, not a...
Yeah, no, yeah, that's not an old railroad grade.
Deep Gap?
All the way to Deep Gap, yes. You can actually still see the pipe. There was a... what do you call it? The thing that holds the water, the tipple. And the thing comes down and it fills for steam. Well, I can take you up there and show you the remains of a few of those.
I'd like to see that.
Yeah, I took a railroad historian up there once, and he showed them to me, and I didn't know what they were. And he said, and they're made out of wormy chestnut.
Wow.
And they're just piles of wood just laying there rotting into the ground.
But they were
those were the
engine steam
for the water and they were always on a stream, so that they could, aim the water down into the tank. And but those tanks went all the way. That train went all the way around to Deep Gap, and then there's a spur right there for it to get turned around, and it went all the way up toward the mine. If you know where the grassy woods were.
Right, that's the Winter Star side, right?
Right, exactly. That's, it went all the way up. It didn't go clear to the mine, but it went up close to the mine.
And then what about the aerial tramway? We were just down talking to Nolan Harris today, and he has a piece of an aerial tramway down at his place.
Yeah.
What did that do? What aerial
that was for what is it? The White Rock? Is it
Feldspar.
Feldspar. Okay, they were mining feldspar. That was put in 1936. I can't remember the guy's name, but the buckets were only about that big around and about that tall. But they would fill them, and it was gravity. The gravity of the full buckets, it sloped down. It was like a clothesline, the kind that went out and came back.
So this is the upper mine we're talking about.
Yeah. They went to the upper shaft, and you can still see the dead man where they anchored it.
Okay.
And the cable laying there. And part of it. There's a picture I think you took of somebody. You were with Jim.
Kilty?
Who?
Jim Kilty?
Kilty.
Yeah.
Or is it Kilty? Or one of them, and up there looking at part of that. It's still laying on the side of the thing, and but the feldspar didn't go anywhere. I don't know why. It never really took off, but they got the biggest piece of mica, I believe, ever mined in the United States came out of that mine.
Came out of the lower shaft, right?
The lower shaft, yeah.
Horizontal
yeah,
shaft, right.
Yeah, exactly. And it was hard because they had to break it into pieces to get it out of there. But they managed, and then the problem was it was synthetics. You know, they use them in pictures in vacuum tubes for insulation, and they use that mica for all kinds of things. But the problem was once they had synthetics, it was cheaper to make it with synthetics than it was to mine it and pay all that labor to get it into the factories.
Do you remember the old toasters that flipped out, and the old metal, they flipped out, and there was two heating elements, and in between the two heating elements was a sheet of mica?
Yeah, I still see those in the antique stores. But that mica mine was very popular, and it gave a lot of people a lot of jobs. And Dinah Wilson's father is the one,
Amos Presnell?
Amos Presnell is the one that dug that tunnel, and he started tunneling on that on Christmas Day in 1951. And the tunnel was completed in the summer of '52.
And isn't it kind of an engineering miracle, for particularly back in those days, that they could start where they did and drill that tunnel and hit
the upper shaft.
Hit the upper shaft, dead on?
Yeah, that is. They had an engineer in there from the state to help them with that.
And that
but
tunnel,
still, that
350 feet long?
Yeah, as long as that is, it's absolutely a miracle that they were actually able to bring those two, the upper and the lower shaft together.
And is there any truth to this idea of the story that they were a little worried because the vertical shaft was filled with water most of the time by then?
Yeah.
And were they a little worried that, breaking into it would blow out?
Yeah, and they'd all go tumbling out the shaft. Yeah, that was a worry too. And in fact, there's a picture of it, of the water shooting down. I don't know if you ever seen that picture of them all standing there, and they had just hit the water, and there's a stream of water. This must be, I mean, it would just knock you out if it hit you. But I got that picture somewhere. I've got so many pictures I can't keep track of them all.
I want to see more of them. And what do you know about bear hunting up here? Have you been involved in that or no?
Not really. I don't hunt. I've never been a hunter. But bear hunting is just entrenched in the culture here,
It's
very,
historic, right?
very much so. And I know people that have bear meat in their freezer.
Yeah. People must have survived on it at one time.
I think they did.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of, from what I understand, it's kind of gamey and it's kind of tough. So you have to, I think, boil it before you can.
Stew it for a long time in pressure.
Yeah, it needs a lot of
Yeah.
like a pot roast or something. It needs a lot of
Seasoning, maybe cooking.
yeah, cooking. So that was a childhood, and like I said, we about 1968. That's when Ray Miller opened the Mountain Wilderness, and we started going over there for the square dances on Saturday night. But they did have square dances here as far back as the late 40s. The very first year they used that community hall was 1948, and I found that in the local newspaper in the old columns, the Cattail Creek News. If you remember, Neva Ronaldo used to write that, but there were other people. Mabel West wrote she lives here on that hairpin curve there where Barry's driveway is. That was where the Mabel and Ira West lived. And then up there where Gene Guerin, you know Gene, he's a veteran. He, the woman that lived there, her name was, what was her name now? I go blank. Well, anyway, she wrote the Cattail Creek News too. There were 3 or 4 different women. And then the woman, if you remember, the Heckarts.
Heckarts?
Or was it Heckarts? Who is it?
Hager?
No, George Hager. Okay, well, George lived in that cabin right there. But right next to it, this green cabin.
Right. Donovan lives there now.
Donovan, yeah, Donovan Edmondson's. Yeah, there was a woman that lived there that wrote the community, the news for a while.
Well, it seems like part of the things that make Cattail really kind of special is the history, and that people are bothering to still hang on to it, record it, and appreciate it, and talk about it, and relish it.
Yeah,
It's just a tradition here, right?
It is. It's hard sometimes. Some of the new people aren't really interested in that. It's so foreign to them. It's just like, well, what are you guys talking about? And that's okay. You can't expect everybody to cherish these memories that we have. But at the same time, they'll always be special to us. So, but You know, I had my share of adventures. I wrecked a motorcycle once and put a nice hole in my leg.
Up here at Cattail?
Yeah,
Oh dear. Where was that? Where'd you wreck it?
up there towards where Colleen Burns's place
On the
is.
gravel road. Right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
easy to wreck a motorcycle. on
Got a
gravel.
couple of stitches in my leg,
Oh,
but I
gosh.
managed to survive that.
I bet Anna Lee wasn't very happy with you.
No, she wasn't at all.
Bless your heart.
But oh, the things that we did, you know, we just.
So we were free-range kids, right?
Oh, we were.
Absolutely.
Oh, we were.
Yeah, absolutely.
We definitely were.
Yeah.
You know,
And here we are today, still.
and
made
here
it
we are,
somehow.
still free ranging.
Right, exactly. Well, thank you, Mark. This has been a lot of fun. This has been really good. Good.